Hi, I'm Lisa, and this is Giovanni and Abigail, and we're from Bedtime Stories for Kids. And tonight we're going to read Disney's The Aristocats. This is from the Read to Me Treasury Classics Bedtime Stories book. I'm pretty sure we got this when we went down to Walt Disney World, and we bought it in the parks. Okay, go ahead guys, sit down. Madame and her cats lived in a style that was truly aristocratic. In fact, Duchess and her kittens were Aristocats. "Oh, Edgar, I'm expecting my lawyer, George's Harcourt," Madame said as she entered her beautiful home. As she waited, Madame watched each of the kittens display a different talent. Marie sang, Toulouse painted, and Berloy played the piano. Suddenly, the door opened and Georges walked into the room. "I've asked you here on an important legal matter," said Madame. As Duchess and the kittens gathered around, Madame told Georges that she wanted to leave her entire fortune to her precious Aristocats. Meanwhile, through the pipes in his room, Edgar listened in on Madame's conversation. The butler was shocked to learn that he would not inherit anything from Madame until all the cats had died. Edgar had always been jealous of Duchess and her kittens. Now he had even more reason to hate them. "Those cats have got to go," he hissed. The plan. Edgar soon cooked up a nasty scheme to get rid of Duchess and her kittens. He planned to lull the cats to sleep, drive them into the countryside, and leave them behind. He poured an entire bottle of sleeping pills into a pot of warm milk. Edgar knew the Aristocats would never suspect a thing. Duchess and the kittens lapped up the creamy liquid. Berloy even invited Roquefort the mouse to dunk his big cracker into the milk. Everyone ate until they were full. Then Roquefort staggered back to his hole and fell fast asleep. Duchess and the kittens were also feeling tired. The sleeping pills had worked. Soon Duchess and her kittens had fallen into a deep sleep. As the moon rose high in the night sky, Edgar crept in and gathered up the cats. Edgar placed the basket in the sidecar of his motorcycle and headed for the country. He was far from Madame's house when he ran into a bloodhound and a basset hound who came from a farm near the road. The dogs chased Edgar into a river. The basket holding the sleeping Aristocats tumbled off the sidecar and came to rest in the soft grass under a bridge. Duchess and her kittens awoke to a thunderstorm. They did not know where they were or how they had gotten there. Duchess gathered Marie, Toulouse, and Berloy to her. "It will be all right, darlings," she said softly, but even she was frightened. Back at home, the storm awakened Madame. Knowing her cats were afraid of thunder, she went to check on them. Madame gently pulled back the drapes over their little bed. "They're gone!" she screamed. She looked everywhere. She even asked Edgar if he knew where they were, but the butler said nothing. O'Malley. The next morning, as the sun warmed the countryside, Duchess heard a happy voice floating down the river. It was Abraham de Lacy Giuseppe Casey Thomas O'Malley, the alley cat. His friends called him O'Malley for short. O'Malley was taken with Duchess the minute he spotted her across the river. "Why, your eyes are like sapphires," he cooed to Duchess. But Duchess interrupted the handsome tomcat. "We are in a great deal of trouble, Monsieur O'Malley," she told him. She explained what had happened, and O'Malley offered to help them get back to the city. O'Malley snuck the Aristocats onto a milk van. "All aboard!" he called out. As the van started up, Duchess thanked the alley cat for all he had done. Suddenly, the van hit some big rocks in the road. "Marie!" screamed Duchess. O'Malley turned just in time to see Marie fall out of the van. O'Malley grabbed Marie and scrambled to catch up with the van. "Thank you for saving my life, Mr. O'Malley," Marie said meekly. It was then that O'Malley decided he'd better go back to Paris with the Aristocats. A close call. The next morning, Duchess, O'Malley, and the kittens woke up hungry. They helped themselves to breakfast from a can of milk. Just as they began to eat, the delivery man spotted them in his rearview mirror. He slammed on his brakes and angrily chased the cats out of his van. O'Malley and the Aristocats started walking across a large wooden bridge. Suddenly, they felt the ground rumble, and a train appeared. It was bearing down on the cats at a frightening speed. "Quick, duck beneath the bridge," O'Malley called. The bridge shook violently as the train roared over it. O'Malley and Duchess held on to the kittens as tightly as they could, but little Marie slipped. "Mama!" she cried, falling down into the rushing river below. O'Malley dived into the river. Duchess dashed to the end of a log and scooped Marie up just as O'Malley lifted her out of the water. But O'Malley wasn't the best swimmer, and he was carried farther and farther downriver. Fortunately, the river flowed into calmer waters, and O'Malley floated right into the path of 2 white geese. Duchess and the kittens were relieved when they saw the kind-hearted geese carry O'Malley safely to shore. By nighttime, the cats had reached the city. Duchess was anxious to reach Madame's house, but the kittens were so tired that O'Malley convinced Duchess to spend the night at his nearby penthouse. When they arrived at O'Malley's place, they found that some of his musician friends had dropped by for a jam session. O'Malley was worried that Duchess would not like the jazz music his friends played, but Duchess was quick to react to the bouncy tune. "Your music is so different and exciting," she called out. Toulouse, Berloy, and Marie joined in the fun too. Now the band was really jamming. After the band left, Duchess and O'Malley took a quiet moment for themselves. "Your eyes really are like sapphires," he said to her warmly. The kittens listened as O'Malley proposed to Duchess, but Duchess couldn't accept. Madame still needed her. She and the kittens had to return home. Home at last. The next morning, O'Malley, Duchess, and the kittens arrived on Madame's street. Rockford watched from the window as O'Malley and Duchess sadly said their goodbyes. Unfortunately, Edgar had seen the cats too. The nasty butler threw a big sack over them. Duchess and the kittens meowed for help as loudly as they could. Up in her room, Madame heard the cat's cries for help. Thinking Duchess and the kittens had returned, she rushed to the front door, but there were no cats in sight. Edgar had hidden the Aristocats in the kitchen. Rockford ran to see if Duchess and the kittens were all right. "Go get O'Malley, Rockford, quick!" Duchess cried. The little mouse soon caught up with O'Malley. He told the cat what had happened, and O'Malley asked Rockford to track down his gang of alley cats. "Just tell them O'Malley sent you." Oh boy. O'Malley to the rescue. Rockford was afraid that the alley cats might eat him. He was a mouse, after all. But when he mentioned O'Malley's name, the alley cats quickly agreed to help. At Madame's house, O'Malley saw Edgar carry a sack into the stables. The Aristocats were in the sack. O'Malley watched Edgar lock the cats in a big trunk. He was going to ship them all the way to Timbuktu, Africa. There was no time to lose. O'Malley leaped onto Edgar's back, scratching and clawing the evil butler. O'Malley's gang arrived in the nick of time and managed to overpower the butler. While the alley cats were keeping Edgar busy, Rockford picked the lock on the trunk. When he got the lock open, O'Malley lifted the lid and let Duchess and the kittens out of the sack. With one swift kick from Frou-Frou the horse, the butler ended up inside the big trunk. The alley cats pushed the trunk out onto the street just as the baggage van pulled up to the stables. "Well, this must be the trunk that's going to Timbuktu," the driver said. He picked up the heavy trunk and put it in the back of the van. Madame Bonfamille was happy beyond words to be reunited with her beloved Aristocats. Realizing that Duchess and O'Malley were in love, she immediately invited him to live with them. "Now, my pets, a little closer together," she cried, and took a portrait of her happy little family. The end. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Good night.